All right, aloha mai kako, everyone. Thank you for joining us today uh, for Writing Integrity in AI. This is a Library Lab workshop. The Library Lab, this is the second in a new learning series from the Leeward CC Library that is open to all Leeward faculty, staff, and students. And topics will include research skills, database search strategies, AI and writing, which we are covering today, and much, much more. Um, the next Library Lab workshop will be on October 15th. That will be a Leeward database deep dive, finding and citing scholarly articles for your topic by Natalie Kahn, our instruction librarian. So my name is Wade Oshiro. I'm the Interim Learning Commons and Library Coordinator here at Leeward. I am joined today by, or with,
Oh,
Meredith.
yeah, sorry. Meredith Lee. I am assistant professor in English.
Yeah. And so we will be kind of sharing with you. Meredith will be starting the session today, sharing with you about an instructor's perspective on students' use of AI, as well as issues and problems with current AI detection methods. And following that, I will be sharing with you a relatively new tool called the Forge, which is provided by LibreText, and sharing with you some of the functionality of this tool and how it might be used in the classroom. And then finally, I'll be talking very briefly about a spring 2026 pilot that we are kind of planning for at this moment. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Meredith.
Okay, thank you. So before I start with sort of the problems, I just want to put it out there that Wade and I are not anti-AI. This is not to say, somehow all AI is awful or students should never use AI. That's not the case. But the problem that we're seeing is that students are not using AI, you know, well. They're not using it to learn. Instead, we find a lot of students are using it to cheat. Um, so they are literally copying and pasting out of ChatGPT or something, and on a variety of written assignments. So not just formal assignments like essays, but also things like reflections and personal narratives where we really want, the student's voice, discussion posts, analyses, kind of a whole range of things. Um, and in a variety of courses. So I teach English from like English 22, which is developmental, through 100 and 200 level courses. So all of those. But people that I've talked to also in their classes. So speech, human services, ICS, chemistry, Hawaiian studies, music, and other courses. So this seems to be prevalent enough that it's a problem. Student Teachers are getting frustrated with students using AI to cheat. Um, so again, students are not using AI as a tool, which is totally possible, but instead they're trying to use it as the easy button, right? To create their assignment in seconds and then just copy and paste that and turn that in. They are not evaluating the output. Some of them are unable to do it. They don't have uh, the language skills, the writing skills, the critical reading skills to evaluate and modify or revise the AI output, which would be better. Um, and then the students are not learning the skills or concepts being taught, right? So when they're using AI to generate their reflection or their essay or discussion post, they're not going through the learning experience that the teachers want them, right? There's a purpose for all of us. There's a purpose why we assign certain assignments. And then students are not benefiting from that. So um, the current methods of AI detection, and I put detection in quotation marks, are problematic, right? So one thing is AI detectors Like GPT-0 and others, are not 100% accurate. There are still a lot of false positives and false negatives. But even before that step, teachers have to notice something about the assignment in order to run it through an AI detector or, check it out further. And so as AI gets better, we're just not going to catch every instance. And I think even at this point, um, with students not being terribly great with AI, we're still not going to catch every instance. It's just, with the workload that we have, I think it's just not possible to catch every single one. And then that raises questions about like fairness and stuff. So some of us, uh, to try to get better at finding these, or creating a way to detect if students are doing something suspicious, we've turned to Google Docs. If you're familiar with Google Docs, there's a version history that will show you kind of changes over time. The problem with that, though, is that it can be time consuming. You have to know to look, go into the version history, and then you have to click around and see what changes were made. um Sometimes it can be a little misleading depending on the assignment. If you have an informal writing assignment, there may not be a whole lot of evidence of going back and revising or editing, in which case version history might look like just straight typing, which could look the same as somebody retyping something that ChatGPT produced. So that not there are still problems with that version. And then um a colleague of mine suggested Origin, which is a Chrome extension. Um, it is not yet on the approved third-party tools list, so I would kind of caution about, whether you want to use this or want to encourage your students to use this. And I want to show you what it looks like, but it is also slightly problematic. So can I do this? Okay, so you can see this is just a document I took notes on. But once you're signed up and logged in, you'll have this little pop-out window here. And what I've been using is this watch report, writing report. It will show this kind of rating natural typing patterns, but it doesn't flag, if somebody is retyping a document that's something else produced, it's not necessarily going to catch that. You can speed it up. So 1 time speed, 5 times, 15. I tend to like 15. And then you can kind of see them as they're writing. On this bar down here, it will show you if there was something that was pasted in. But this has glitched on me. I've been using it only since the beginning of this semester, and it has glitched on me a lot. As sometimes as changes get made, this scroll of the document kind of jumps around. And so you can't really see what's going on. So it is still a little problematic. But in some ways, I think it works better than just using the version history. If you're not familiar with version history, oh, okay, wait, let me pause that. If you're not familiar with version history, in File, Version History, see Version History, this is like the static version of what we watched. And it gets fairly granular. If you open this caret, it'll give you almost minute by minute. Sometimes it's like 2, 3, 4 minutes at a time. But it will highlight changes. Wait, let me see if I can get something fairly old. It should highlight changes that were made. Oop, is it not letting me do it? Sorry, version history has also been glitching this semester. So up here it says highlights ready, update. I don't know why it does that, but it'll show you like what was added in that session, what was deleted. And it will do it almost minute by minute. But again, you got to click through everything to see what was done. And if there is a, if there's a gap for however many minutes, then it'll just appear as a chunk, right? So you don't know kind of if it was copy or pasted or whatever. So those are the current kind of options that we have right now. Um, and nothing is particularly great at identifying this. I mean, at least to the point where I would feel comfortable telling a student, like, I am convinced that you used AI, and that kind of thing. I don't like to accuse students simply because the work is like too good sounding or not, it doesn't sound like a student. Um, that's not quite enough for me to, potentially accuse them of cheating when they didn't. So that's where we are. And that brings us to this other option that Wade found, which is the Forge. So I'll stop sharing and Wade can take over.
And yeah, I had put in a question to the audience about how they're responding to AI use in your assignment. So just feel free if you want to share how you responded, maybe similarly to what Meredith shared or in different ways. Um, yeah, we welcome that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop that in the chat and then we'll answer them as best as we can as we go through the rest of the session. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is now is introduce you to a relatively new tool. It's called the Forge. It's from LibreText. If you are familiar with OER or have interacted or used OER, LibreText is one of the largest repositories of OER text. And so one of their goals is to develop this kind of uh, ecosystem for instructors. So not only providing textbooks, but they have a homework platform. And so the latest is what's called the Forge. And so let me go ahead and share my screen now, and then I'll take you through the Forge. And what I'll try to do is kind of go back and forth between the live database as well as just sharing some of the rest of our slides here today. So we have the slides that you can access, but the Forge is essentially it's a web-based word processor and learning management system. Okay, today's focus is on the word processor part of this. So it's built on this open source word processor called Collabra, and then what it is beyond just a word processor, and this is what's really interesting about it, and hopefully you'll find it interesting as well, is the analytics that are built into to this product. And so what this is designed for essentially is for any kind of long form writing assignment. So anything more than, these are the developers, they said more than 600 words. Okay, so if you have more like very short form type of writing assignments, it won't work as well because the analytics are what makes the Forge really special, at least in my opinion. And so use cases could be for composition, writing intensive courses. Some of the use cases that the developers have suggested is even like science labs when students have to write lab reports. So there are some use cases there as well. So anything that is more a writing assignment that has, more than 600 words. And so what it provides on the instructor side is you'll be able to see through graphics, visualizations, the student effort that they put into the writing and the writing process. And you'll have access to analytics that will help you to understand how students have the kind of effort they put into the assignment, their engagement with the assignment. So one thing we've been talking about AI, but one thing to just be clear about that I need to be clear about is that the Forge is not an AI detector, okay? But it's a learning platform, and the purpose of it is to focus less on the product and more on the process. So process over product is what the developers are promoting. So this is the Forge. So the Forge includes the ability on the instructor side to manage students within a class that you set up within the platform. It allows students to write in the platform. That's one thing that's really key about the Forge is that if you do or are interested in using it in writing assignments, students have to write in the Forge because as they engage with the platform, their time spent in the word processor is what's used to kind of create the analytics that you'll be able to kind of see and get a better understanding of how students are writing. Um, it allows for peer review, revision control, again, the advanced writing analytics. Um, it could integrate with an LMS, but we're not there yet because that is a whole process that needs to be undertaken to get approval for it to integrate with Lamaku, and it's not integrated with Lamaku at this time. And so just quickly, so one thing, as an instructor, you are invited to sign up for an account. So for instructors, it's free. This platform itself is not free for students. There is a fee involved, and I'll talk about that very briefly at the end, but also share more about the pilot that I'm hoping to launch in the spring of 2026 for interested instructors who want to kind of use it and see whether it's beneficial in their teaching. So right now, let me see if I can hopefully. Can you see my screen and the Forge? Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is the Forge. And so I've logged in, I have an account. And so as an instructor, I would be clicking on my classes here. And so this is where you would create a new class. So I have created two test classes that I've used kind of to test the platform as well as the analytics. But you as an instructor, once you have your account and you want to set up a class, it's as easy as just clicking on new class, uh, giving a name. This enrollment key, once you set up the class, this enrollment key is what you as an instructor will share with your students. So with this enrollment key, students will be able to enter your class. And so it's all drop down. And you can set your course dates as well and indicate whether you are looking at a numeric or a letter score. And then you click create. And then so what you'll get is something like this. So going into my test class here. So this is a course that was set up. And so you see here as the instructor, you'll be able to see the students. And so again, your students have to um, use that access code, enrollment code to enter your course. So you would have to monitor that on your end. Okay, none of this is integrated with Lamaku or your courses in Lamaku. You have the ability to assign teaching assistants. And then right here is where you create your assignments. And so I'll go into this a bit more. I'll show you the analytics more than the building of the assignments, but here's where you can create your assignments. And I'll click edit. And so and this is just a very basic assignment that I created. These are some of the options that you have available to you. And so on and so forth. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of setting up. Here's the analytics. And so this is the part I'm going to spend most of my time on today. And so this is just analytics from the class level. It gets really interesting when you look at it from the individual student level. But here are, these are the students in this test class. And so you can get a very high level look at, how students, the amount of time they're spending on a particular assignment that you have. That one's not as interesting. These get more interesting when you look at it from the individual student level. But this is kind of the high level look at your class and how they're interacting with your assignments within the class. Um, so from the student side, I'm jumping to the student side. So this is where a student will click on here and then they would enter their enrollment key here and they would get access to the class. And so from a student perspective, these are the classes that I have access to, this test and test two. Okay. There are some guides here for students, for instructors. There's very brief videos here as well. You need that. Let's see. Oops. Okay. What was that? My mistake. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of click through the slide deck right now. Okay. So I'm gonna have to open the Forge again. So I wanted to just show you so the word processor is a fully functional word processor. And so you see here just a screenshot of the a page from the word processor, and so it has all the tools that you would expect from a kind of a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word. So this is where the student is and will be required to write their assignment if you decide or are interested in using the Forge. So I think that's the key thing, and that might be a barrier as well. And so if you have any questions or comments about that, please feel free to share that. Let's see. Okay, so we're back here. I'm going to put on my instructor hat. I'm going to go into the test class, right? And so I'm going to click on students and I'm going to click on this student here, Wade. And so this is where I want to take a look at what the student has kind of accomplished within the Forge. And so this assignment has been submitted. And so now I'm going to click on read. Okay, and so what you're seeing here on your screen is the essay that the student wrote, that I wrote as a test case in this word processor. On the left-hand side are kind of the what's interesting are the analytics. So one of the things that the Forge does, it will provide grade, a grade on effort. So it's hard to see, but this is a C effort according to this platform. What I submitted here was a C for effort and a C for revision. And so the platform itself will provide a letter grade for effort and revision. And so this is something that you as an instructor might use as a way to kind of gauge how students are doing. And then also it will flag when you need to maybe pay more attention to what a student has done in terms of their assignment. Below here are time metrics. So it's tracking active writing time as well as the think pause time. So you see here 18 minutes active writing, 55 minutes think pause, total writing time hour 43 minutes. And it creates this ratio, rush ratio is how they term it. And so it's the active writing time divided by the think pause time. And this rush ratio is another way for you to kind of determine the amount of time that a student has spent writing this document. You're looking for a rush ratio of less than, I think, 0.9, but I'll cover that shortly in my slides. Let's see. So these are the analytics. So there are three types of analytics here. So the first one here, and I'm just going to briefly cover these and then I'm going to jump back into my slides. So yeah, I'll talk more about them when I get back to the slides. So this is an essay map. So essentially what this is, it's graphing um, the uh, the amount of time and effort the student spent in the in writing or completing the assignment. And so on the upper left corner is this is where the student started their assignment. On the far right is where they ended the assignment. And this is graphing each point in time is a moment where the student kind of was interacting within the platform. And you'll see that it's color coded. So these bubbles, green would be the inserted text, that bluish violet would be the updated text, and then the red would be the deleted text. So you can see over the course of the entire time of the assignment, where the student was and where they had made edits throughout the assignment. And so this is one of the analytics that's available within the Forge. The other one here is the heat map. So it's showing, kind of when in time the student was interacting and writing, actively writing within the Forge here. So you see here that for my test essay, I didn't engage with it that much. I had 2 points in time where I was really working in it. Here on this date here, and then, excuse me, on this date here, and then on this date here before I submitted the assignment. Another graph is the word change, and so this is showing um, the change in words within the document. And so what you see in green here are what would be considered appropriate kind of word count addition or deletion within a document. Anything that rises into the red, the pink or the red would be areas where there was significant you know adding of uh, words within a short frame of time. And so that would be kind of a flag for you as an instructor, and would indicate maybe you need to pay some attention to that part of their of the student's writing. Okay, so those are three of the analytics. And the fourth function is this rewind essay. So similar to the origin tool that Meredith shared earlier. This allows you to kind of get a video capture of the student as they were writing, interacting with the platform and completing their assignment. And so you can actually fast forward it. And so you see here what's highlighted. Green would be the new text, orange would be the edited text, and then deleted text would be in red. And so you can see their progression through this assignment. And so this is another way that if there was a significant kind of increase in the amount of words added, so it could potentially flag it as copying and pasting extensively into the text, then you can see exactly where that happened and kind of get a better idea of what the student was doing at that moment. As they were working on the assignment. Okay, so this is really a quick kind of overview of the Forge. So I'm going to jump back to my slides now, and let's see. Here we go. All right, so let me just continue forward. And please, if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to kind of unmute yourself or send it in the chat. Okay, so going back to the effort score here. And so after submission, so once the student submits the assignment, then the platform will assign it a grade, the student a grade from A to F. And so effort here is a measure of the amount of effort the student expended writing the assignment in terms of time, writing, and editing. The effort score is meant to be, so all of this is meant to be advisory, okay? But they do suggest that you as an instructor consider allocating up to 20% of the grade for this assignment to this particular metric. The revision score similarly will get a grade from A to F. So revision is the measure of how deep a revision the student engaged in for the assignment. And so again, it's advisory. So it's just something for the student to consider. So if you see you know, a D or an F, that would be kind of the flag for you to maybe pay more particular attention to this particular student and how they engage in this assignment. And again, so they advise allocating potentially up to 20% of the grade for the revision metric. And so all of this is just advisory, okay? It's not meant to tell you this is the grade that the student should get for this assignment. I mentioned the time metrics earlier, so I mentioned that that rush ratio. So anything again greater than 0.9 indicates some kind of uh, rushing. So it could be that the student was maybe typing from another document, another, and just doing a typing in. So it would note that in terms of how the how many words or how many words are being added to or typed in the platform at any one time. So it's all tracking that the student's engagement with the platform. Um, Mentioned rewind, so that's just the video of the assignment. Just one thing to note that it's not doing keystrokes here. So none of this is doing any kind of keystroke. So with the rewind, what it's doing is taking like snapshots of the document every like 30 seconds or so. It's taking a snapshot of the document. That's the video that you're able to uh, fast forward through in this rewind tool. The analytics, so with the essay map, when you look here at the upper left side, so again, this is maybe easier for me to share out. So this is the start of the essay, and so the end of the essay would be on the far right corner. Going across on the horizontal axis is time, and then here is just uh, the axis. The vertical axis is just where in the document they are, and so the circles represent insertion or deletion of text. Right here, the weird brown color, just it's because of the red and green. So this indicates actually this is supposed to be red. So that would be deleted text there. And so what the essay map is, it's a visual chart of edits over location within the assignment and across time. And so you can see where students have added or deleted content very readily. So example, so this would be an F effort. So an essay that had a kind of like a straight line here would be one where it indicates that the student didn't really put significant amount of effort in editing the document. When you see a continuous line, what we're looking for and what it's looking for is kind of less of a kind of progression like this, a straight line, and more something and this is also an example of a lower effort, F effort assignment where you see significant amounts of inserted text. So all of these circles represent a significant insertion of text. So this would be a C effort. So this is when I showed you my example when I submitted that assignment, it assigned it a C as an effort. And so you see here that there are some gaps here and that you see some edits happening throughout the document, but it's still, it's unbroken, which is better. More fragmented is better because it shows more editing is happening. But this would be like just a C effort. And so A effort. So this is an example of a high effort essay. And so you see here, there isn't a straight diagonal line. It's very fragmented. And you see that editing is happening throughout the document, right? Across time. And so this is what the platform, what you would be looking for as a high effort assignment, high effort by the student in the assignment. Word change, again, this would be shows changes to word count over time. And so large spikes would be anything greater than 50 words per minute. Um, and sustained periods of greater than 25 words per minute would be viewed as suspicious. So if what they're seeing is that there's just a very consistent typing in the document at a very sustained pace over time, that would indicate potentially that a student was typing from text that was elsewhere, from another computer or from something that they had printed out earlier, right? Because as it is analyzing how the students engage and interact with the platform. So anything that's sustained at a very consistent pace would be viewed as potentially problematic. Okay, so word change would be minute level word count changes across time. It can also be a way to spot copy and paste efforts or, again, rush writing patterns or just very sustained, consistent writing, which is not typically what you would expect when a student is just writing and thinking and editing all at the same time. All right, so this would be an example of where there was significant amounts of language pasted in. So you see what you're looking for in this word change graph would be more the green, right? Activity would happen in this very thin band here. But you see a lot of added text here, and I think that's over 1,000 words added at one point in time. So very problematic and a red flag for you as the instructor. Here is example 2, and this is an example of an assignment that's written quickly. So either the student is typing out previously written language or the student wrote the assignment in a rush with limited effort. Okay. And then again, this is where you would be on the lookout for any significant kind of additions or deletions. So dips are showing significant changes happening within a short period of time. And this would be an example of a higher effort assignment where you see a lot of what's happening is in that green band there. You're seeing some deletion happening, but no significant kind of addition of text copied and pasted in. Here's a more detailed example of a heat map. You saw the heat map I showed earlier, which was there's only a couple of places where activity was happening, but here would be kind of more activity over time that you're seeing. So just gauging their engagement over the course of the assignment period. Okay, so minimal engagement here, and then here we see more engagement. So here are the dates, right? And here is the time within each of those days. So you see here a lot more engagement happening in the assignment here for this example. All right, so that was an overview, very quick overview of the Forge. So if you are interested and wanted to maybe just take a look more at, what I shared with you today, you are free to request an instructor account. You just would go to this website here, forge.libretex.org. There is a verification process, so they're going to be asking you for evidence that you are an instructor, and it's mediated by a human on the other end, and so it could be as soon as within the day. In my case, it took a couple days because it happened over the summer, but then you will be given an instructor account that allows you to kind of play with the the platform. Finally, I just wanted to invite you, if you are interested, if you have any questions after today, feel free to reach out to either me or Meredith. I have a form here. If you are potentially interested in piloting the Forge next spring, please respond to this form. And so this is really at the preliminary stage right now, but the Forge is not free. So you're free to engage with it as the instructor, But if you are going to be using it with your classes, there is a $15 fee per student. The pilot that I am proposing, planning for in the spring of 2026, um, we're going to be the pilot will be supported by UHCC OER, and so funding for that pilot will come from OER funding. Finally, if you have any questions or you just wanted to learn more about it, I just really give you a very quick and dirty look at the Forge. These are some resources you can turn to. The YouTube videos, if you're interested in hearing from Delmar Larson, who is the executive director of LibreText, that is hosting the Forge, or from Raymond Owenbrink, who is one of the developers of the Forge, talk about the Forge and its potential use and benefits within the classroom. These are some videos that you can take a look at. And then I also have the instructor guide there as well. So I'm gonna stop my sharing right now. Stop share. And I just wanted to ask if you had any questions. If there are any questions.